Ladies and gentlemen, you're not ready for what you're about to hear. You think you've seen power, you think you understand strength, but you've only scratched the surface. What if I told you that the world's most powerful nations are no longer leading the arms race? What if I told you that something is rising silently, without applause, without noise, without begging for recognition? Something that is beginning to shake the foundations of global power, and it's not coming from the West. It's coming from India. People have underestimated for years. They've mocked, ignored, overlooked. But while the world slept, India built. While the noise echoed in other corners of the earth, India stayed quiet and focused. And now the silence is breaking. What is being revealed is not just strategy. It is genius. It is science. It is courage. It is a storm. This is not fiction. This is not myth. This is not the tale of a developing nation trying to catch up. This is the rise of a country that is now being watched in awe by even the strongest military powers. Why? Because of 10 creations, 10 weapons, not just tools of war, but symbols of dominance, precision, and unmatched vision. They weren't built to impress. They were built to defend, to assert, to prove that strength does not need permission. Imagine a missile so accurate, it can find its target over 5,000 kilometers away with the precision of a surgeon's knife. A weapon that doesn't scream but whispers destruction. That missile exists, and it was made not in Washington, not in Moscow, but in India. It's not just called a missile. It's called a message that says we are no longer following. We are leading. Now think about a tank. Not just heavy metal on wheels, but a beast that moves like lightning and strikes like thunder. Light, agile, deadly, designed to move through deserts, mountains, cities, forests. Made to dominate every terrain it touches, this isn't just steel, it's strategy in motion, built not to imitate the West, but to surpass it. That's not ambition, that's reality. And then there's the eye in the sky. Satellites that can see everything, everywhere, all the time. These aren't the eyes of a watcher. These are the eyes of a guardian, capable of tracking every movement, intercepting every threat, and striking with intelligence before an enemy even knows what's coming. That kind of vision used to belong to the superpowers, but today, India holds that vision too, and uses it without fear. There's a submarine, so silent, so invisible, that even the mightiest navies are shaken by its presence. It doesn't roar through the waters. It glides like a ghost. It disappears in the deep, only to return with power that can erase entire fleets. It is not fiction. It is real. It was made with Indian hands and Indian minds. And now it waits silently, reminding the oceans who commands them. And then there are the skies, fighter jets so swift, so sharp, so unpredictable that they've redefined air combat. These are not borrowed designs. These are homegrown legends, capable of rising in seconds, maneuvering with grace and striking with ferocity. And when they fly, they do not just defend, they declare that the sky belongs not to those who claimed it first, but to those who mastered it best. Have you heard of the laser systems? Beams of energy that stop threats in midair. Weapons that use the power of light, not bullets. A science once considered science fiction is now part of Indian defense. Silent, clean, instant. That's not just innovation. That's leadership. Not with noise, but with knowledge. There's a cannon, a howitzer so advanced, so deadly, that it sends fear even before it fires. Long range, high precision, unmatched accuracy. It doesn't make threats. It fulfills promises. Promises that India will stand, will defend, will never again bow. That kind of firepower doesn't just win wars. It prevents them. And now picture a drone, but not a toy. A bird that flies higher, sees farther, and strikes faster than any enemy can escape. These machines are not remote. controlled toys. They are warriors in the sky. Armed with intelligence, precision, and autonomy, they speak with action, not with noise. They do what needs to be done, and they do it with excellence. There's an armor system, wearable, durable, unstoppable. Soldiers protected not just by gear, but by technology that turns them into moving fortresses. These aren't just vests and helmets. They're shields of the future, light to wear, heavy in power, built to endure anything, built to protect everything. That's not just defense, that's dignity. And now the 10th, the one that many thought impossible, an anti-satellite weapon, the ability to destroy threats not just on land, not just in water, not just in the air, but in space. Yes, space, the final frontier, and India reached it, not to explore alone, but to defend. A weapon that can take down satellites, neutralize eyes in the sky. That kind of power was once owned by a few. Now, India owns it too, and it doesn't brag about it. It just proves it. Each one of these 10 weapons is not just a tool of war. It's a statement, a declaration of progress, purpose, and pride. They were not built for celebration. They were built for preparation. They were not built to start wars. They were built to make sure no one ever dares to start one. Because real strength doesn't need to announce itself. It shows up when needed, and it stands without apology. This is not about rivalry. This is about reality, a reality where India is not waiting for approval or validation. It's not knocking on the doors of old powers asking to be let in. It's building its own house. And it's building it strong. These weapons are not toys. They're tools, tools that say one thing loud and clear. The world is changing, and those who do not see it will be shocked by it. This didn't happen overnight. It happened with sweat, with sacrifice, with vision, with belief. Belief in a nation that refused to be known only for its past, but chose instead to build a future, and that future is now armed with precision, speed, and resolve. Because when a country dares to rise without asking for permission, it doesn't just change itself. It changes the game. The game has changed. The silence has ended. The world is watching, and the ones who once led now stand still, shocked. Because India didn't just arrive. India advanced, quietly, boldly, unstoppably. India's military advancement has quietly reached a level that shocks even global superpowers through self-reliant innovation, precision technology, and bold execution. This transformation didn't begin with a declaration or a public announcement. It began in laboratories, in workshops, in testing fields, far from the cameras and applause. While other nations were busy showcasing dominance through headlines, India chose the path of discipline and silence. But silence does not mean absence. It means work was being done, real work, tireless work, work that doesn't seek the spotlight, but becomes impossible to ignore once it's revealed. This rise was not accidental. It was a deliberate decision to no longer depend on imports or borrowed blueprints. It was a realization that true power cannot be rented. It must be built, and India chose to build from within, using minds that refused to settle for less and hands that were ready to create what had never been done before. The commitment to make in India was not just a slogan. It became a mission. That mission turned into missiles, jets, drones, tanks, satellites, and defense systems that now rival the most powerful on Earth. Precision technology became the foundation. No longer was the goal to just match what others had done. The aim was to surpass it. Every chip, every circuit, every algorithm, every screw was designed to function with accuracy, efficiency, and reliability. And the results began to speak louder than words. Weapons that can strike thousands of kilometers away and land exactly where intended. Systems that can detect threats before they materialize. vehicles that move through every terrain without error, tools that operate not just with power, but with intelligence. This kind of progress is not built on money alone. It's built on vision, on courage, on a willingness to take risks that others were afraid to take. India was told what could not be done. India was reminded of what it lacked. But it did not listen to limitations. It listened to the call of responsibility, the responsibility to protect, to innovate, to rise. And that's exactly what happened. Now, the rest of the world watches, not with sympathy, but with surprise. Nations that once supplied India with defense equipment are now looking at Indian technology with interest and even envy. They're asking questions. They're paying attention, because something has shifted. The narrative has changed. This is no longer the story of a developing country struggling to catch up. This is the story of a rising power rewriting the rules, reimagining the future, and doing it without waiting for validation. Through self-reliance, sharp innovation, and fearless execution, India has become a force that even the most dominant powers did not see coming. Each of the 10 weapons symbolizes more than power. They reflect India's strategy, scientific genius, and the determination to defend without apology or dependence. These weapons are not merely built for warfare. They are built as reflections of a mindset that refuses to beg for recognition, that refuses to copy others, that refuses to rely on external forces for its survival. Each piece of defense technology carries with it a deeper meaning, a statement of purpose, a badge of self-respect, and a line drawn in the sand. These weapons are not loud in their display, but their presence echoes across borders, making it clear that India is not just participating in the global defense landscape, but shaping it. They were not developed to showcase muscle. They were born out of necessity, discipline, and years of strategic patience. Every missile that launches from Indian soil carries with it not just explosive power, but layers of thought, layers of vision, layers of scientific mastery. Every satellite launched into orbit, every drone deployed into the skies, every submarine submerged into the depths is the product of a nation that chose not to wait for handouts, but to rise through its own efforts. This is not about matching someone else's technology. It's about creating something that has never existed before. The strategy behind these advancements is as sharp as the weapons themselves. India did not rush into an arms race blindly. It observed, it studied, it calculated, then it moved. And when it moved, it did so with precision. That's why these 10 weapons are not scattered projects. They are part of a larger picture, a complete defense ecosystem that covers land, air, water, space, and now even cyber and artificial intelligence. That level of integration doesn't happen by chance. It happens when a nation knows exactly where it wants to go and refuses to be distracted along the way. Scientific genius lies at the core of every design. It's not just engineers who built these systems. It's dreamers, innovators, problem solvers. They faced limitations of budget, technology, and infrastructure, but they didn't stop. They broke through barriers with creativity. They redefined what was possible. In labs across the country, minds worked day and night to build something that had never been built before. And today, the results of that effort are visible in every radar system, every anti-satellite weapon, every smart artillery platform that now guards the nation. The determination to defend without apology is what sets these weapons apart. They're not tools of aggression, they're symbols of resolve, a reminder that while peace is always preferred, weakness is never an option. India does not seek conflict, but it also will not back down from it. That's what these weapons say. loudly, clearly, they say that the nation has risen, and it has done so on its own terms, not through dependency, not through imitation, but through belief, through action, through an unshakable desire to stand strong, no matter the challenge. India is no longer a follower in the global arms race. It leads through breakthroughs like anti-satellite weapons, stealth submarines, drones, and long-range missiles. This shift didn't come from trying to replicate what others had already done. It came from choosing to innovate beyond what already existed. It came from looking at the battlefield not as a place to compete, but as a place to dominate through intelligence, technology, and relentless pursuit of self-reliance. The world once viewed India as a nation catching up, but that perspective has been shattered. India is no longer catching up. It is setting the pace. The development of anti-satellite weapons is one of the clearest signs of this rise. Space used to be the frontier of only a select few, but India broke through that barrier, and it did it without borrowing or begging. It proved to the world that it could strike targets in orbit with accuracy and speed. That achievement is not just a show of strength, it's a warning that the skies are no longer controlled by just one side. It's a declaration that the future battlefield has expanded beyond the ground, and India has arrived fully prepared. Stealth submarines glide through oceans without leaving a trace. These aren't basic machines. These are marvels of modern science, capable of disappearing into the depths and reappearing where least expected. They move with silence, but carry with them immense firepower. They make it impossible for enemies to guess where the danger is coming from. That kind of unpredictability is not easy to develop, and even harder to counter. It's the kind of advancement that shows just how far India has come below the surface, literally and strategically. The drones that now fill Indian skies are no longer dependent on foreign control systems or imported parts. They're developed locally, engineered with autonomy, precision, and real-time response. These drones don't just fly. They observe, analyze, adapt, and strike. They're built to respond to threats before those threats fully emerge. These are not just machines with wings. They are eyes, ears, and hands of modern warfare. The fact that India now commands fleets of such drones is proof of its growing dominance in asymmetric and intelligent warfare. And then there are the long-range missiles, weapons designed to travel across continents and still hit with pinpoint accuracy. These are not just missiles, they are statements. They say that no threat is too far. They say that India can respond to any challenge from anywhere on the globe. The technology behind these systems is not simply about distance. It's about guidance, speed, and control. To strike a target thousands of kilometers away without hesitation shows a level of mastery that cannot be ignored. All of these breakthroughs point to one undeniable fact. India is leading not through imitation, but through innovation. It has studied the world's best and then chosen to build something better. And in doing so, it has redefined what leadership in the global arms race looks like. It is no longer about who got there first. It's about who's prepared for what's next. The development of these weapons wasn't meant to intimidate, but to prepare a message of strength through discipline, not aggression through noise. True power never announces itself with arrogance. It does not boast, it does not bully, it does not seek applause. It simply stands ready. That is exactly the principle behind India's defense evolution. These weapons were not crafted to parade superiority, but to ensure readiness in a world where hesitation can cost everything. They were created not for conquest, but for protection, not to provoke fear, but to enforce peace through capability. In the global arena, where many nations flaunt their power as a way to dominate discussions, India took a different path. A quieter path, a path of dignity and purpose. The creation of advanced weaponry was rooted in necessity. Surrounded by unpredictability and faced with complex threats, the answer was not to shout louder than the rest. The answer was to be more prepared, to be so strong that no one would dare test that strength. This is not the strength of volume. It is the strength of resolve. Discipline guided every step of the process. Building missile systems that reach thousands of kilometers without error requires more than science. It requires patience, precision, and years of focused effort. Creating submarines that disappear into the ocean and reappear where least expected demands silence and consistency. These are not the fruits of aggression. They are the rewards of self-control. When a nation invests in such capabilities without announcing each milestone with fanfare, it means that the motivation is deeper than headlines. It is rooted in the belief that peace must be protected, not just wished for. The world sees weapons as tools of war. India sees them as tools of responsibility. When defense becomes necessary, it should not come from panic. It should come from preparation. That's what these systems represent, a commitment to readiness, a refusal to be caught unguarded. Every drone, every tank, every radar system, every piece of military technology exists not to threaten the world, but to reassure the nation. To signal that the doors of peace are always open, but they are protected with unshakable strength. This is not a show of aggression. It is a doctrine of deterrence. Those who mistake it for intimidation have misunderstood the message. These are not symbols of ego. They are symbols of endurance. India does not move through fear. It moves through purpose. That purpose is clear: to stand firm in the face of danger, to remain unshaken in the winds of conflict, and to hold the line not with empty words, but with prepared hands. In a world that often respects noise more than substance, India chose substance, chose to let its work speak instead of its voice, chose to be ready rather than reactive. That kind of discipline creates a power that lasts. It does not fade with politics or waver with pressure. It grows stronger because it is grounded in something real, not in conquest, but in the quiet confidence of being fully prepared for whatever may come. The world has underestimated India for too long, but now the silence has ended, and the nation is standing with power without asking for recognition. For decades, the global narrative has been shaped by a handful of nations who believed leadership belonged to those who spoke the loudest. They believed dominance came from display, from declarations, from endless self-praise. In that noise, India chose quiet. While others flaunted their weapons and boasted of their reach, India built without distraction. It wasn't concerned with catching attention. It was concerned with building a foundation that could not be shaken. Silence is not weakness. Silence is discipline, and India's silence was never about staying behind. It was about focusing ahead, because while the world kept looking at the surface, India went deeper, and to its laboratories, into its factories, into its mines. It created what others said it couldn't. It developed what others said would take decades, and now, one breakthrough at a time, it has stepped out of that silence, not with a scream, but with undeniable strength. This strength does not need to be validated. It is not standing in line, waiting for applause. It is not holding up its achievements, asking to be seen. It is simply standing, strong, firm, unshakable, because real power does not beg for recognition. It speaks through readiness. It speaks through results, and India's results are now too significant to be ignored. They are being noticed not because India demanded attention, but because the world cannot look away anymore. The underestimation came from old habits, from an outdated mindset that thought power could only come from a few places. But the rules have changed. The balance has shifted. India has stepped into a new role, not by asking for permission, but by earning its place through hard work, vision, and relentless will. It no longer fits into the box that others built for it. It has created its own space, and it's filling it with precision, innovation, and strength. That strength is visible in its defense, in its technology, in its policies, in its quiet refusal to be dependent. Every radar system, every missile platform, every satellite, every naval vessel is not just a tool of protection. It is proof that India no longer needs to be told what it can and cannot do. It is acting from within, and it is acting with purpose. There is no more hesitation, no more waiting for recognition that never comes. The nation has moved past the need for validation. It is standing not in reaction to criticism, but in fulfillment of its own vision. The silence has ended, but what has replaced it is not noise, it is clarity. Clarity of identity, clarity of purpose, clarity of strength. India is not just another name in the list of nations. It is a rising force built on patience, on belief, and on the kind of discipline that never needed to be loud to be powerful. Now the world sees it, and what they see is not the echo of a follower. It is the firm stance of a leader